This event is brought to you by World Pro Racing, the Malta Motorsport Federation, Game Breaker Malta, GMR Entertainment, WJ England and Son, Melita, Media Looks, Restream.io, Gaming Malta, VisitMalta.com, and TVM Sport.
Senna was a god. No one could even dream to follow him.
I'm from a very humble background.
The role of women at that time were really difficult.
This is so dangerous. You are risking not only your life, but also my life.
World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real. Week 2. A first week which showed a lot of promise, a lot of potential, a lot of drivers who wanted to bring themselves up to the highest level. Some brilliant action up and down the field and a great scrap for a podium as drivers looked to try and put themselves to the very highest echelon of what Malta's motorsport can offer. That opening race, won by Daniel Vella, known as Kyokudo Racing, was one which he would be incredibly excited to have and puts himself as the overall driver right now who is eyes to watch for 2021. But today, this casual race, the second of 5 that we've got here live on World Pro Racing's YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook Live on Motorsport TV for the first time this season, and as well as TVM Sport. This is going to be a really interesting look into what the scene looks like, how to set the stage for 2021. This is effectively your form guide here today. I'm Jake Sperry here in the commentary box, joined alongside me today by Nicholas Hillerbrand and, of course, Justin Mifsud on the cameras for this one today. FIA accredited and, of course, Malta Motorsport Federation accredited stewards in the form of the race director, which is Adrian Fagaio, and George Muscat as well, the chief steward for racing today. But as it was just a few, or 1 week ago, I should say at this point, it is Spa-Francorchamps where we are at today. And Nicholas, you know, we have to talk about Spa-Francorchamps, a very, very fearsome track, which even in its tamer form as it is today at 7.004 kilometers, it is still one of the most amazing challenges a driver will ever get to face.
Most definitely. Thanks for introducing me there. I have to be honest, you know, if you're ever going to get in contact with racing, Spa-Francorchamps is probably one of the first circuit names that you are ever going to hear, because simply it's such a legendary circuit. Simply just experiencing it in any simulator, or also, you know, just being there for once in real life, you really can't comprehend how much of an extreme elevation change it is, alone from La Source up to the first corner at the end of the Camel Straight to the Combe. It's really, really insane. So it'll be an insanely exciting race to watch.
Absolutely. And what's going to be key is what's happened in this opening week to get ourselves ready for what is to come up. So here are a couple of highlights coming along from what happened just 1 week ago. Race here, the official Maltese Gran Turismo race, is going to be interesting right now. This is the grid stacking up right now, and you're going to be seeing this one all the way through. Kyokudo then on the pole, Zimbu there in second, and Don Racing in third. Robert then be starting from 4th position with Matt in 5th and Del Sol in 6th. There you can see Kenias there, and of course Kyle in 8th. 3, 2, 1, and you can see how much of a gap you get as you go and get yourself going. So 15 laps already put on the board, and it's time to work hard. You get 1.5 second split between those drivers, and those near the back already starting to have a scramble at this point in time. One already around actually there at the back. So that will be a Baloo there, I believe that is, going for a big issue there. Just struggling. It was way out wide. Got a huge hit as well from Brent. Kyokudo in complete control, of course, at the front of this field and stretching the margin out to Zimbu at the front. Don Racing under immense amounts of pressure, though. At this point, you can see how Robert's trying to angle for a line, but you can see the gap there. It's about 2 car lengths here as they hit the brakes towards turn number 1, and it closes all the way down to 1 car length. That's a look to the inside, trying to pick up the run on the exit there. A lot more brave, but Kyokudo completely dominant at the front. 3.2 seconds. Del Sol still has there behind the penalised Robert just behind him. So lap 3 of 15. Drivers will already be looking at the tyres going, they're not quite at their best. Maybe expect a pit stop around lap 7, 8, 9, 10. Side by side as the 2 Porsches go at it. Don and Matt trying to have a good run. Matt trying to open up the corner here through Maltese, defended hard by Don through this section. And is this going to be a move, as we see on replay, just how close it gets? You can see the contrasting lines a lot wider from Don moving forward, but for the time being, Matt just having to stay in line, takes that big wide line, trying to open up every corner possible, almost like trying to open up a can of tuna, for example, and through up the hill through this wondrous section of road. But now you can see Matt again gets a good run, and again will have to go the long way around here at this section. Has the overlap, has the overspeed. Don slots back into line, and there is a change for the podium now as Matt makes his way up there ahead of Don Racing. Trying to get through. Oh, Don, huge wiggle. What a save going through that section. So easy to get it wrong, but a nice recovery there from the Porsche. Let's get a look on replay. You can see there, 1 kick, 2 kicks, red kick, blue kicks as he went through that section. So easy to get it wrong, but now it puts him in the clutches of the Mercedes behind of Robert. Here's some side by side because Don Racing's coming straight back here at Matt. And that came out of nowhere. There's a 1 second 1 second penalty actually coming in from behind. But look at that from Matt down the inside at Pujon, and has got it done. So 1 second's worth of penalty will be administered to Robert at the moment, as administered by the system, and that's so defensive there. End of lap 5, start of lap 6. Also second comes in, so the soft tyres not lasting very long, and here's the strategy that comes into play. A new fresh set of tyres comes up for them, and away they will go. There you can see side by side, 5th and 6th, and that's a change. So Del Sol jumps over there Robert, who will have a 1 second penalty to add on top of any retrospective race time, which is down to 0.8 of a second at this moment in time. So has served a couple tenths of a second of that penalty, but Del Sol at the moment trying everything to get going, and the strategy has worked for the moment, but the different compound of tyre now will make life a little bit tougher. There is Zimbu in second place right now, 8 seconds, nearly 9 seconds now off of the race lead, but that battle third still heating up, but no changes of position just yet. We are at the halfway stage of this race in the second half. Coming up right now, it's all about momentum, and here comes Don Racing now moving to the inside, which will turn very swiftly to the outside through this section. Matt holding it side by side as they go through. They're going to go too wide at Blanchimont, ladies and gentlemen. Through the right they go, and it is Matt with the bravery that gets it done, but Don Racing refusing to give up then in this scrap, trying to work it on the outside, but cannot get anywhere near close enough to make a move a reality. A little bit of too much curb for Don Racing as we go from driver's eye once again, but he's still got a great run off for the exit. Still going to have a look here to the left-hand side at Pujon and trying to make it work. He's got the move done. Great little look down the inside, but this is all just feeding into the flames that are coming along of battling too much. It's not going to make life very easy at all. So Don Racing now just suddenly finds himself back on the podium, but it's a long way to home. This is interesting. Del Sol comes down in on the medium compound tyre, so obviously the medium was not doing it. The race was not quite working here for Del Sol, and this might just be a change of tyre. And again, a change comes in as well for Kanyas there behind, who came in on the hard compound tyre. As the race leader comes in on the soft tyres, so this will be tyres, this will be fuel, and this will be back out going again, as also Zimbu comes in to make that stop. So, soft again, most likely. Split it up into 3 stages of 5, then at the end of lap 10 coming in. So this is going to be key then. That penalty marker is down to 1/10 for Matt now, so that's going to be key in terms of hitting the box. Don Racing as well is in there for the stop. They can see just getting the fuel out and away. There goes Robert just behind as well, who's got his penalty down to 1/10 of a second too. So that's going to be not ideal for Don, who knows that he had the advantage, and now all of a sudden it's all gone. One car, nose to tail. That is effectively 1/10 it is right now, and Don knows he's got to attack immediately, coming out of the pits and does so, really pinching Matt down to the inside, who lifts out of it and lets Don have it and moves back onto the podium. That was a crucial overtake there from Porsche against Porsche. Don Racing back onto the podium. It's been chopping and changing all race long. Pick up the run off the exit. There in 5th is Robert just behind, and trying everything to make this one work and keep it all nice and calm in position. Close though he is, he's still got to stay with the Porsches heading through the opening corners. The bar none sensational so far, but it is all about now this scrap for the podium. 3 for it, and here looks Matt going to the outside, has the overlap already, and Don's got nothing to fight with that overspeed that was there. The Porsche's trading almost every lap. A yellow flag was there briefly for an instant just in front of them. That may have been the lap traffic, and this could be the move on the outside towards turn 1. Bit of aesthetic damage there on the right there, as you can see on the brakes. Just can't get there on the brakes. There has to just check up a little bit earlier, and there is that longer wheelbase, of course, that comes along from that Mercedes, and that's going to make life just a little bit tougher for the corners. It's built for straight line, is that Mercedes, and up the hill, Eau Rouge Radion. You can see sparks coming off there of Don's Porsche, trying to make sure everything works, and now the traffic comes into play, and Matt Slow made a mistake up the hill, loses both places. This could be 2 for 1 in one Kemmel straight. Are we going to see something like Hakkinen and Schumacher 2000 with the lap traffic potentially on the brakes? No, straight to the inside it'll have to be, and positions stay the same between them. So Don back on the podium, Robert there into 4th place, and 5th is Matt. This has opened the door for Matt here to try and dive down the inside, just like and that. It's going to be a case of, with 2 laps to go, it's the move sorted round the outside of last source. What a move from the Porsche of Matt to get past Robert. That was exactly what was needed. Think outside the box, couldn't get the inside. We'll try the long way around. Here's the replay on the brakes. The back was sliding out a bit as well on the brakes. He was trying to jam it up, even locked it a little bit, I think, there with the rear axle, but did enough to get the move, and it's coming straight back. Oh, there's no room there, and 1 second's penalty adjudicated to Robert. Tries to look for the inside. That would have been for car-to-car contact between the pair of them as they went on through that section. So Robert gets the short end of the stick there, with Matt really giving him only 1 car, my way or the highway, and it was the highway in the end for Robert. He gets a second's penalty as administered by the system. Here's Kyokudo though with 1 lap to go and a little bit more here around this Spa-Francorchamps circuit. The gap over Zimbu is 18 seconds. The fight for 3rd is near 40 seconds at this point, looking towards 45 it may be come the end of the race, but it's still not over. 3 still fighting for that 1 place. If things go wrong for Don Racing, if things go wrong for Matt, if those 2 run into each other, take each other out, they could be in a whole world of hurt, and then even with a second's penalty, it still could be Roberts come at the end of the race. Try and find it on the outside. Look at this, side by side up the Kemmel, and Roberts there waiting. He's thinking, come on, please, come together, go kablamo. But now, through this section on the brakes, it's going to have to be a lift off. The gap comes down to 8 tenths now in terms of the penalty for Robert, and wide goes Matt. Struggling on the tyres a little bit, maybe starting to slide, starting to lose the grip ever so slightly as they go on through. Down the hill once again. Don Racing, though, finds himself in a very, very nice place in this one there. For Kyokudo, who's making his way through Blanchimont corner and now to the final chicane. It has been an awe-inspiring performance, and I have very seldom seen this level of dominance when it comes to racing like this. Kyokudo will come to the line and absolutely obliterate the rest of the field. Zimbu will come to take second position. It will be a long wait as it's 20 seconds the gap is at the moment, and keep an eye out on that third place scrap, because I don't think that this one's over. Not yet. You still got to guarantee it. There's second. Brens will pick up 10th place there, one lap down, but there is Zimbu in second, and there is the 11th place car right in front of Dawn Racing, right at the death. So through the next left of Blanchemont, and that will be Baloo, and this could be the last chance. Almost contact as they went on through there. That was a little cheeky, trying to get the last fringes of draft up here through this section. Is that a bit too deep from Don? I think he's just got a chance. Oh, contact, and Matt, I think, is going to try and steal it on the line. He will, he won't. 3, 4, and 5, they will go in a formation finish. Robert couldn't capitalise on both of them. That was well redressed there by Matt, making sure that that was not going to be there. You can see he gets ahead, but ultimately lifts off of it over the line in an act of sportsmanship there. Kyokudo with an absolutely fantastic run. Pole position, fastest lap, a clean race as well. Get the trifecta working for all of that one. And there we see just how impressive that opening week's worth of racing was at Spa-Francorchamps. And the best bit is you get to do it all over again 4 more times. Now, what's key is how these drivers are going to be racing in terms of format here today, as we get ourselves a look at practice at the moment in what seems to be fairly cloudy conditions, but there's a bit of blue patches in the sky, which is going to make life nice and easy for the racing action today. It's all about formats right now. They're in practice. When they move themselves over to qualifying, there will be a grand total of 15 minutes of qualifying, and then racing will take place at a form of 15 laps around this place, as we take an eye on Windy at the moment, making a run around the track. We didn't see any of these last week here, Nicholas, but we're talking about balance of performance in these Group 3 GT3 category spec cars, and that is a Volkswagen Beetle.
Yes, it's certainly quite a difference to, your usual Audi R8, Mercedes AMG, or the Porsche 911 RSR that we saw just now in the highlights. But, this is the special part of these Group 3 cars, because you have not only just GT3 cars from real life, or in the case of the 911 RSR, a GTE car, but you also have these, self-made versions from Gran Turismo, like the Volkswagen, which, quite honestly, is just an amazing concept to see, and being raced in this event, and it's definitely something special to see a Volkswagen Beetle battle it out with an Audi R8 at Spa.
It's a fantastic blurring of the lines between virtual and reality, even the likes of, say, the Vision Gran Turismo cars. We saw the Mazda a couple of times over that opening week. That was something really fantastic to see. We've also got an eye out on certain drivers to go through. That's the wrong way into pits there for the driver there, so that's not going to be quite ideal to get that one working. So try again. I believe they're Kindred, and she'll try and have a little look to move on forward. Only female in the field is Kindred for this one, but she will try and do her level best to make her way on forward. But a big field up and down the grid, 11 drivers. That's Alinu in the barriers there, but you are seeing drivers there, choosing their choice of car a little bit differently. There's a second Beetle right now from Holy in third position, but what we see from this fantastic Spa-Francorchamps circuit is a whole host of areas where you can make the overtake happen here today, Nicholas. You take a look at the likes of lefts and rights, Blanchemont in towards the chicane, as we see Ivan in the fantastic Toyota FT1 making that break. Doesn't that look awe-inspiring in terms of a vehicle? But you see so many different sorts of drivers look to try and get themselves through in so many different places around this track. I'm pretty sure there's half a dozen places where a move can legitimately be made, and here's one of them right now we see on screen.
Yes, Rouge Radillon, obviously one of the most iconic corners in motorsport, and, well, if you don't get the move done at the bottom of the hill, you sure as hell have a lot of space to try and get the move done up the hill, Camel Straight, and you really don't see that on these cameras, but when you're up on Camel, up at the end of Camel, just at the beginning of Lecum, and you just look down the Camel Straits and see La Source almost at a 90-degree angle to you, you really realize that this is literally just built onto the mountain, just built into nature, a proper old-fashioned racetrack.
Absolutely, and it's one of the few things that we see now when it comes to race and circuit design, is that there is not as much of an emphasis on building a track into nature. And of course, one of the downsides to that is actually space around this circuit. In terms of what Spa-Francorchamps can do to move out the margins in terms of safety and things like that, to actually move development, there's not really too many things they can do to improve the circuit on top of what they have at the moment. But there is still that sort of old school feel with the barriers in close, and some areas still having gravel traps around the outside, especially there at the Fagnes chicanes. We've been keeping an eye on Edwin there making a run through this section. So there are a few places that you can see out on track where you still got that old influence. Of course, we're not going through corners like the Master Kink anymore, back in the late 60s, early 70s, but what we are seeing at this point, though, is still a track which has a personality, and there's a few tracks in the world that say that they don't quite have the personality needed, but this place, surely you would say here, Nicholas, is one of them.
Most definitely. Just the entire section downhill from Lecum, Bruxelles, Pouhon, you just realize it's perfectly settled into these mountains. And the interesting part is the old GP track, it's still there. It's, obviously it's just a country road, but you can still go that entire way around at the end of Camel Strait down to Paul Frère, and you get to the parking lot there. And when I was down at Spa a couple of years ago, and for the first time actually drove that and realized this is the old GP track, this really, it just keeps in touch with its tradition, with its entire history, and it's just really nice to see this track whenever I look at it.
Well, it's a fantastic track, and we've seen so many times how brilliant this place has been. But there, of course, here over the 15 laps are two factors here today that are going to play into the minds of drivers, one of which is tyres and one of which is fuel. Now, the tyres are going to be accelerated on their wear in the sim, or in the game, so to speak, by 9 times what they normally would do to their current rate. So that's going to see a different change in tyre philosophy. Now, we saw how Daniel Vella in the opening race, Nicholas, won by going on a 3 soft tyre strategy, but we saw a handful of drivers maybe looking to try and test out the medium tyre or even the hard tyre.
Yeah, I think especially here at Spa, with this accelerated tire wear, it is really important to, select the tire compounds that suit well to your driving style, that suit well to, your strategy as you go into the race. Because, of course, the previous winner, as he did basically error-free race, he could just plow on through these 3 compounds of soft tires. But if you can try to go for a one-stop, of course, because, this is not the combined pit lane, but still a pretty long pit lane. The longer you stay in the pits, obviously the less time you can go fast. And you just have to look if you, with your pace in your car, can get that, lap time consistently, that you can drive with a harder compound, but for longer, without losing too much time to the soft compound runners.
And that's going to be key here. Drivers will be looking to try and explore here in this practice session what strategy is probably going to work best. Am I feeling comfortable on the hard tyre, the soft tyre, the medium tyre here today? What is going to be what works? This is Haller right now that we're seeing at this moment in time in this fantastic checkered design Volkswagen Beetle, I should say, moving towards the double left-hander of Pouhon out on track. Rear trying to come around a little bit, taking a couple of little stabs through the corner to make sure that progress is being made. But we also have to talk about progress of Gran Turismo as a franchise, because it was just the other week, or even just the other day, it was announced that Gran Turismo 7 will be coming to the brand new PS5.
Well, just incredible to see it already go into, numerical, the 7th part of the series. I remember way back on the PS2, Gran Turismo 4 was one of my first racing games on there, And you know, certainly from that point on, a lot has been done in the graphics, and it's quite mind-boggling how much technology has also just evolved in the last couple of years. And the PS5 will most definitely be quite an interesting console to look at when it comes out soon.
And it's going to be a very interesting battle that we will see between a whole host of people here today. And of course, we will see Battlegrounds up and over. Now, it's worth talking about what we are actually racing for here today. Now, there's nothing, so to speak, to win except pride, except for one more thing, which is that each winner will be getting a set of headphones by Game Breaker Malta, which would be a really nice addition for those who have won. So Daniel Vella already has a set of those. But these casual races are pretty much here in association with the Malta Motorsport Federation. A lot of a sighter, almost a taste test for everyone at this point in time, because a national championship will be held next year, 2021, and the winner of which, Nicholas, will be representing Malta in the FIA 2021 Motorsport Games. And in terms of what is a big place to try and make sure that you've got the best result possible, if anywhere you want to start making your name, making your case, making sure that people know who you are for next year's national championship, this is a fine chance.
Most definitely it is. I mean, if you hadn't mentioned the Motorsport Games, I would have already done it just for the headphones, but, you know, it's really a big, you know, another bigger incentive to, you know, do your best here to just get out there, you know, try and get your name seen. And, of course, we have this not just on YouTube here, but also on TVM Sport and on Motorsport TV. So quite a lot of people can already get to know you through these races if you do well.
Absolutely, and that's going to be the key here. I think a lot of drivers want to try and put their best foot forward, so to speak, and put themselves at the best possible place. Try and make sure that they have what they have, as we find ourselves about a minute away from qualifying at this moment in time. And of course, those 15 minutes are going to be so crucial. Drivers will be allowed to finish their lap once the timer expires, but the big key is going to be about who is going to be fantastic around this place. Let's take a lap on board with your race winner from last time out, Daniel Vella. This is how a lap of the track is going to look. And as you can see them moving towards turn number one, a fantastic corner here, Lassource's hairpin, and Nicholas, you can really tell here as drivers look to try and get on the power up the hill. This is a really important place to get it right, because this is all about carrying momentum up this section.
And you think it's just a single hairpin, but Lassource is quite an interesting corner, because you have to get it properly right, just perfectly in the dip, so you get the perfect momentum just to get the entire run down the hill and up towards Eau Rouge and Radillon. So, you know, you just mess it up a little bit at La Source and you can already miss, you know, 2 to 5 kilometers an hour, which doesn't sound like much when you go into Le Combes here, but it will cost you time dearly. I'm going to Le Combes here now. Oh, sorry there.
No, it's absolutely fine. Through Lake Cumin into Malmedy, that right-hander, of course, a lot of corners here are named after the boroughs here of the Belgian towns. Of course, a mixture between Spa and Francorchamps. Most of this Spa track is actually based in Francorchamps. Down into Jackie X corner, the former corner without a name. You're always falling down the hill. Rivage corner was the same. Now you've got this double apex left-hander of Prouon, and this is the second half of the track, and this middle sector is all about that downforce, and this is what makes these vehicles a nightmare to work out what's the best for balance of performance, because every single part of this circuit here, Nicholas, feels different into the Fagnes chicane.
Definitely, because the entire car balances between all the cars are, of course, a lot different. So with a longer wheelbase, you have, you know, just a little bit more grip at longer corners, but you know, it's not as agile on turn changes like on the Fagnes chicane. Just as he made his way perfectly there through Stavelot and Cours Paul Frère. Now coming up to Blanchimont, of course a very famous corner here as well. Insanely fast and just barely flat out in these cars here. Just coming to the former bus stop chicane, which is now just a regular chicane, but nonetheless still a great overtaking opportunity just at the end of the lap. Hits the curb there and very nice exit to end the lap here.
And I wouldn't call that chicane regular. It's a very tricky chicane with both parts can catch out drivers, and we've seen it so many times here today. We've got a small delay here, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll get you over to qualifying as quickly as we possibly can. But for the time being at this stage, you know, this is going to be a case for a lot of drivers where they haven't necessarily had this much coverage on their race. And of course, whilst most people will be saying, okay, we're qualifying for X, we're racing for X, and it's pride at this point in time, whether we win, whether we come, you know, at the back of the pack, whoever we are and how they're racing, Nicholas, you know, the big question is going to come as follows. Who's going to rise to the occasion when it comes to this event, and who's going to think that they have the form possible to say, I am one of the favourites when it comes to next year?
I think it's quite difficult to tell because, you know, you can so much stuff can go wrong in these races. You have to be, especially at a track like Spa with these fast cars. Of course, it's not an open wheeler, so it has far less downforce. So you have to be even more on edge through faster corners, simply because you don't have that much downforce, but you have still considerably more than, you know, the slower Group 4 cars, for example. So I think it will really be down to, you know, stay error-free and stay consistent. We saw the fight for the third place position last race. It went literally down to 3 wide on the final straight. So anything can happen here. And I'm not saying it will, but it very well might happen again that we have a finish like that.
Here we can see now as we head ourselves over to qualifying, 11.5 minutes remaining and a little bit under at the moment. Everybody will be trying to make sure that they get the cleanest possible lap available to them. They've got to stay within the line, so to speak, otherwise their lap is going to be invalidated. So consistency is going to be a key right now as we get our focus on Windy right now in the Volkswagen Beetle, heading through Campus Corner here. There's the campus on the inside, and then to Stavolo this next right, and corner Paul Frere, which continuously follows up alongside that. A lot of drivers would have already gone through their out lap and now would be looking towards their flying lap at this stage. Drivers will be looking to try and make sure that they are pretty much on it from minute 1 to minute last. And actually, it's all about development, finding that time, exploring the limits right now. And how would you say, Nicholas, will drivers try and find the limits as one car's going backwards right now towards the final chicane? That would be a little bit concerning for drivers here today. But how will these drivers look at trying to improve lap on lap and finding their limits as 2:16.7 becomes the first benchmark out on track?
Yeah, I think the drivers will have to try and optimize their own cars, you know, advantages. You know, I mentioned this before, you know, with the shorter wheelbase, you are a bit faster in smaller, like more windy section. Like, for example, the Fagnes chicane or Lecum, or the last chicane as well, as we saw the VW just now going through that very perfectly. I think that's by far the smallest, the shortest wheelbase that we have here. And if you compare, you know, the Audi to a BMW M6, for example, the BMW is way longer than that, so that is a lot more stable, for example, through corners like Eau Rouge and Radillon or Blanchimont, when you really need that stability in these cars. So I think it'll be a very tricky, you know, balance of really pushing on the limit, really overcoming the weaknesses of your car, where you can see them in these corners, but at the same time, you know, making the most of the advantages. And I think that'll be very interesting to watch here, because we have so different cars here.
Exactly, and it's advantage Windy at the moment. 1 second and 9 thousandths is a bit of chump change, so to speak, ahead at this point in time. Haller there in second, and it's Zolueta there in third place overall. Sorry, Zoluka, I should say, in third place. Number 666 would certainly suggest one thing at the moment, but at the moment, third place in the Audi, trying to make a push. And in terms of staples of a Group 3 category like this is right now, Audi is one of them. German engineered, all about putting weight down onto the rear tyres, making that car as very much hunkered to the ground as possible, and that vehicle always has a great centre of gravity to go and drive around. So in terms of the front, which says Supreme, Zoluka trying to be supreme, but you're not going to be that if you're going to be mowing the lawn, so to speak, on the gravel.
But he's actually keeping the drift through the entirety of Stavolo. Really impressive there, so just barely saved it. But at the same time, even having a little bit of a moment there right behind him as well. But yeah, as he said just now, it's not only just wheelbase, as I said, or, you know, how long or short or whatever your car is, like how much downforce it produces, is also about the weight bias. And I think the best example, you know, of the difference here is we have the Audi with the mid-engine, and just as perfect comparison, we have even here in the Toyota with obviously a front-engine car, which, you know, it's never wrong to have a bit of weight on your front axle, so you will have more consistent grip on the front tires through slower corners because you have simply the engine sitting on there.
That's the key as well. Different drivers and different vehicles will have different advantages and disadvantages when it comes to this place. We're already halfway through qualifying, so we're down to 7.25 minutes remaining right now, and all of these drivers will have one thought in mind: what's the next position I can gain? How much time can I usurp out of this circuit? And sometimes it does pay to just be a little bit behind one driver here or one driver there. For the time being, though, it's that big battle from second on down, somewhere around that 2:18 margin. You can see Hallo having only 1/10 of a margin right now, looking to go on a flying lap at this point in time. What's key is Volkswagen 1-2 in terms of manufacture at the moment. They can see Gianluca in third position, a full 1/10 off of what is needed, but he himself 1/10 over Simiana at this stage in fourth position overall. And again, it's just 1/10 down. It goes the same from fifth all the way to sixth. There's the Audi in fifth place with Bully, and it's a really close condensed field at the moment from second down to sixth.
Yeah, it's getting really quite interesting here. We have obviously the Audis from 3 to 5, but right behind that we have the Toyota, and here we have also just on screen the Mercedes AMG for a quick moment, which is down in 8th place right now, but I think he can also move that car a little bit faster there because, you know, AMG, one of the very popular GT3 cars, of course. But, Kindred just off the road for a second there. But, yeah, of course, like, she's one of the numerically less cars here, with the cars that is not so as popular as the Audi, for example, as she's slightly getting into the way of Bertu there. But, getting quite tight there, actually. But yeah, she will obviously also try to show a bit of girl power here today, so I'm quite excited to see how she will turn out today.
Absolutely, and it's all about now trying to get as much representation. There's so many great elements of where female sim racing has really grown and developed over the last year, 18 months, 2 years or so at this stage. So many great drivers. Emily Jones, you can put into that higher echelon. We're seeing so many great female racers. The likes of the W Series has been fantastic. Jamie Chadwick has been a great ambassador and representative for women in racing and women in sport. So we're looking to try and see how well she does today. She's currently down in 9th place, but this is Gianluca at this point in time. Up the hill through Eau Rouge and Radion. You can see the back just squirreling about through every single part of that section. Now heading up the hill towards the next right-left with 4 minutes and now 15 seconds going to come up on the clock right now.
You can see he's really aggressive there. Now just barely clipping the curb, just barely clipping it again. Very nice line there. But you really saw how nervous that car was at the exit of Radion. Just clipping over that crest there. The car is so unsettled there, and you could really see it in his case. He's got a bit of a wider exit out of Bruxelles, or Malmedy as it's also called, and just through curved Jackie X there, and really with a loose rear end, he's really trying to get the most front grip out of the entirety of this car. And I'm wondering if he can keep that up until the end of the lap, just as the Toyota gets out of the way there very nice and fairly.
Yeah. You could really see now how much the Audis having to push at this stage. Windy back into the pits, not happy with that, and does have enough time to get back out and going. Now, this is going to be key here. You're going to see these pit stops are automatic, so down in onto the lane, up on the jacks, those are the 4 tyres that are going to be put back on. Fuel still needing to be put into the vehicle right now, and just the waiting on the fuel is the case before the get and go, and then immediately back on, and that's key, only putting in about 20 litres or so of fuel to go for one big push to end the runs right now. So we'll see how those times are coming in on the board, but we are seeing a bit of difference in terms of times. For example, Kindred, she's right now 17.5 seconds off of the quickest time at the moment, as Luca puts a 2:17.2 on the board to go second.
Really just splitting the Volkswagens there, and he really did have a couple of words to say about that fully Volkswagen front row, but Hala is also still in the game. He has still time to set another lap, and I'm just wondering here if he will have to say another thing about it.
Well, at this point in time, the gap now down from what was 1 second down to 4/10, so half a second at this point. So this is how it looks. Windy on pole at this stage, Luca in second, Hala third, and then it's Simiana there in 4th position at this point in time. But the key is that it's going to be a rolling start for this race, so no matter what happens here, it's not going to necessarily be a grid of side by side. They're going to be running about a second behind for the way that they start. So at this point in time, we're just having a couple of issues right now, so I do believe we are going to be losing a little bit of coverage in just the next few moments. As we just see right now, we will get the results at the end of qualifying right now. There is a little bit of time that we can have to go and get that going, but with a minute to go, these drivers right now, Nicholas, they're going to be pretty much on it. Of course, they are allowed to finish the laps that they start, as long as they start their lap before the timer ticks down to 0.
That's usually always what you are aiming for here. And it doesn't matter if it's an entire minute or just a couple seconds. If you can get that final lap in, and you already know this is my last shot, you have so much adrenaline pumping through your veins, and sometimes it's really that bit of adrenaline that you just need for that last ditch effort. But sometimes the pressure can just overwhelm you, and I'm pretty sure that especially our second VW here will probably want to reclaim that second spot on the grid. And we will soon find out if he was able to.
Exactly, and that's the key then towards this. And of course, the 15 laps that are going to be coming up, that's going to be a big challenge for these drivers, especially on fuel margins here today. Now, what's crucial to work out is that drivers don't necessarily have themselves a mandatory pit stop. They can pit as many times as they like, even if that number is 0, but the fuel is going to be another different challenge. And as we saw there, by taking what was 21 litres at the stop, did Windy, the key here, Nicholas, is the fact that 2 laps are going to be using anywhere towards maybe 30 litres, or 30 as a number of the tank, so 30% of the tank. That probably means that we're seeing drivers going at maximum 6 laps here today.
Yeah, so it'll be quite interesting to see. Obviously there's also a bit bigger and a bit smaller fuel tanks sometimes, depending on the fuel consumption of the cars. Also part of BOP in this, but it'll really be interesting to see now if people will actually try to just go for shorter stints and, just instantly get in, just do the triple soft stint as we saw last week. Or if they will actually try to get the runs a bit longer. For example, just at the start, get the runs a bit longer, so you have a very short stint at the very end of the race where you can push the maximum out of those tires without, having to live through the consequences of having completely worn tires.
And that's going to be so crucial for drivers. They look to make runs today on motorsport.tv, on TVN Sport, and of course with World Pro Racing in association with the Malta Motorsport Federation, and as well as Game Breaker Malta. The prize for winning one of these casual races is, of course, going to be one of those game breaker headphone sets, which are going to be so very nice to have a good listen to. And, of course, part of the FIA Motorsports initiative right now, the hashtag Stay Safe at Home in the top left-hand corner of your screen. And, of course, one of the big things here in terms of racing and sim racing has been the unity that has been seen so many times before. And Nicholas, it's that unity that is bringing everyone together through so many fantastic and amazing events that have cropped up over the last 3 months.
Most definitely. We have seen so much stuff happen. We've had so many sim racing pure events happen. So, you just had a lot of sim races or esports athletes just coming together, having these races. But also, quite a lot, and with quite a lot, I mean really a lot, of people going into sim racing as well, just ordering rigs. If they didn't have one before, we had so many people ordering stuff and actually getting in, so many new people coming in, so many people starting to stream. And really, we just stood all together, and it was a quite interesting and just, great experience to be part of. In this entire community, in this big community that we all have together. And in the end, we have a big lockdown, but I would say that this is one good thing that we got out of this quarantine, this, unity out of both the real and virtual motorsports sitting together at one table and just, dishing it out against each other.
And that has, of course, been very, very crucial, and we have seen that escalate over the course of the months, and so many different drivers and so many different teams have been looking to try and get themselves involved into sim racing. And of course, you yourself at home, wherever you may be, however you may be watching, of course, you can also become a sim racer yourself if you believe that think you are quick enough, you've got the passion, the drive, the determination to go out there and want to prove it against all of the rest. You have that opportunity to do so. There's so many amazing platforms to go and make sure that racing can be for you. And of course, I would say, is the fraction of a budget compared to what a real-world racing seat would be. And one of the fantastic things that I often say is that a real-world racer is just a sim racer with a bit more money compared to other people. But Nicholas, we're just a few moments away, it seems, from getting towards racing action. And of course, it's going to be frantic off of the start, but with just a few gaps between the drivers, it's going to be a hard-working first quarter of the race to really get back into an attacking range.
Yeah, just in a couple moments, we will have this race finally start. Who at this point is your money on to, who do you think will win this race? And do you think it's going to be a sort of clean cut like last week, or do you think we're going to have a bigger, battle for the lead?
It all depends on the qualifying results, of course, which we are waiting patiently here to have right now, as we have just an issue right now that we are trying to fix. So we do appreciate your patience here as we try to get you back to action shortly here with everything that's going on. But for the time being, though, it's going to be about who gained advantage and initiative. We know that qualifying is not necessarily here, Nicholas, the real opportunity to win the race outright. What it does give you, though, is the best available opportunity to go out and pick up a race win. And of course, having that opportunity to start from the front, you can start from the front, you can start from the very back. You still have the same, technically, chance of winning. It's one in however many drivers there are out there on track racing.
Most definitely. The saying always goes, you don't win the race by getting pole position, but it's certainly a comfort to start ahead of everyone else, especially when it's a rolling start. So, you have a little bit of free space, so you just have this little bit of reassurance that you don't have to start pushing from the start right on, unless, of course, you have some very fast people right behind you. But either way, I think it's going to be quite interesting to see here, simply because we have, these completely different cars here, the Audi, for example, and the VW, right next to each other, as it would seem as we last saw it. And yeah, I'm quite interested to see on how the drivers will try to play out against each other with their strengths and weaknesses.
And it's those strengths and weaknesses that we will see around this place. And of course, those strengths and weaknesses really do crop up through various parts of the way that racing goes on around this Spa-Francorchamps circuit. But this Spa track has had so many amazing memories through all facets of the racing calendar. I think that I can quite happily say here, Nicholas, in terms of Spa-Francorchamps circuit, it is probably one of the only true great all-round circuits that can host all kinds of racing.
Most definitely. We saw obviously Grand Prix racing here, GT racing with the 24 Hours of Spa, but also, multi-class racing with speed differences of prototypes to, what would be these Group 3 cars here. And it's, with everything, it's just always very interesting to see the speed differences, for example. Just having a look at, when you're at the Spa 24 Hours and you see all these GT3 cars heading up Eau Rouge and Raidillon, you're thinking, yeah, you can't do that much quicker there. And when you actually then visit the 6 Hours of Spa, where these LMP1 cars and LMP2 cars go through there with, another 20, 30 kph or even faster, and your mind is just blown. So it's really just interesting to see the entirety of Spa in all possible ways. And with the Beetle here, very nice parallel as well. The 25 hours, I think, of Spa in the Fun Cup cars, in the old Beetles, which is also, with what seemingly is like hundreds of cars just coming down the straight, which is also quite an incredible sight to behold.
Absolutely, it is. When you see those vehicles run up the Kemmel straight towards Lake Coombe, Malmedy, and then down the hill at Bruxelles, called Ravage back in the day, it's always a sight to see as drivers that try and make themselves a way through with great racing that goes on at Spa-Francorchamps from April all the way to October with so much amazing stuff that happens. But we are still in that waiting stage. Just a few technical issues on our end, ladies and gentlemen, and once we get those fixed, and I believe we had a full hardware change from our end of things, we should be looking to get ourselves over towards racing action and being able to showcase just how brilliant the racing is going to be for you for this second race out of 5 that we will be seeing here of the Malta Motorsport Federation casual races that have been going on. And this has been actually something quite interesting in terms of a drive and how Malta has started to really push itself as an esports hub, an esports platform, somewhere to really grow and showcase just how good a lot of esports can be, especially on that sim racing side, where event after event, there is always that small presence there from Malta, which has just been steadily growing week after week, month after month, year after year, and they now find themselves in a place where they very much do have their seat at the dance, so to speak, when it comes to the FIA Motorsports Games. But on top of that, Nicholas, you actually have to look at them and go, well, where are the big sim racing hubs out there in the world? I know that the United Kingdom has a very strong following right now. The United States can very much say that it has one of the largest fan bases. But you talk about things like Spain and Portugal have a great run. Germany has a very established sim racing sphere. And of course, the national championships that go on in Finland as well, always strong. There's so many great nations that have great sim racing out there. And Malta wants to join itself along with the elites.
Yeah, and I think they've really started to make a bigger impact here. It started off quite a bit ago already with, I think, a Porsche Cup that they hosted, and they just keep on going. They just keep on, pumping out these events, and it's really interesting and really good to see, another nation just coming in there and really just pumping out these events, pumping out more and more, also talented drivers, of course, because the thing is with real motorsports is you really need money to actually even be able to show yourself. And that's the nice thing about sim racing and esports. You need a fraction of the budget to get out there, and you can just show yourself, and if you are skilled, you can be seen quite easily, which is the really nice thing about this right now. And the more people, the more countries get involved, the more talented people we can have in the top seats, and that's really just an incredibly great thing right now.
And on top of that, you've got to talk about drivers who are taking that move from, say, a simulator base and now applying it into the likes of motorsports that's gone on. I mean, Igor Fraga, I think, is the first one that comes to mind for a lot of drivers. But what people don't normally get to talk about is how drivers like Dale Earnhardt Jr., for example, drivers like Max Verstappen, for example, have taken or had taken the likes of video games and sim racing and esports over into how they apply that to their racing. It's very much a case, really, that we're looking at, Nicholas, surely, of drivers getting unlimited practice and test time to acclimatise to circuits through the use of gaming and through the use of esports, and then honing their skills, giving themselves drivers to race against, competition to battle against, and always having a challenge no matter where it is.
Yeah, most definitely. And even if, for example, you can't really change, you can't completely translate everything from the simulator to real life, of course, because you can't perfectly simulate, the conditions that you'll have in real life later. But just simply getting, the braking points down, getting the racing line down and all that. I know that quite a few people alone in GT Masters, in the ADAC GT Masters in Germany and, just Central Europe, they actually do quite a lot of that with the help of simulators. And, I think just simply having that, this closeness that the real racing drivers use the same material and all that, that's also a bit enchanting to just, the person starting out in sim racing. Just no matter where they start, they see the big names actually using this, and it really gives you the impression, and rightfully so, that you can start using the same material. You can maybe try to see how fast you can be against those people as a reference.
Exactly, and it's that reference which drivers that try and improve themselves time and time again. It's a building block process where you almost have to try and run away up the ladder, so to speak, to get yourself into those dances, into those main events. And this is what we are starting to see now from a lot of racing games in general, how they want to become that hub, that get that recognition that really says, okay, this is where proper sim racing happens. This is where drivers want to be a part with us. They want to be in a place where they go out there, they race, they attack, they defend, they do all the things that racers do. So effectively, in an arms race of platforms, it's very tough to sometimes stand out from time to time. But how do you, as a sim racer, Nicholas, look to try and go out there, stand out, and be one above those who are already there and already trying to race hard for it, from the hundreds and thousands, if not millions, of drivers who are racing through all the platforms around the world?
I think it's always just very important to, just get out there, try to get involved with communities, try to get involved with, anything where people can see you. Like if there's an event that you think you might want to do, just try and do your best. Have a look, like if, for example, just an event here at Spa. Well, I would say basically everyone loves Spa. Just try, get seated in one of these Group 3 cars, try doing a couple of laps. And I think the easiest thing, like when people just get into it, of course, like they'll start off a bit slower. But, so many people also nowadays in this great age of technology, they just upload their onboard laps and stuff. And you can use those things for reference, for example. Like how does he gain time there? He brakes at this point, I brake at this point, and even if it's with a different setup or something, you can then just partially just keep working your way in. And I've been doing this for 5 years, but I started out as a complete noob myself at some point, and you just need to keep at it. And the nice thing about this is that this really doesn't cost tens of or hundreds of thousands of euros instead, and you can just keep going whenever you want.
And of course, everyone starts someone being brand new, and everyone still has to build up and get themselves to a level where they think that they can improve and get to the very, very top of the ladder, so to speak. It's always a process. You're always striving to improve, and it's very difficult actually to get perfect or as close to perfect as you possibly can. I'd say it's nigh on impossible to get perfect, but there's even things, technologies, which you could say, Nicholas, that maybe people haven't started to look at yet and maybe could even have a look. The one thing that I'm probably looking very excited to see maybe move up into the future in terms of how to find the perfect lap is maybe even going somewhere as radical as finding a tool-assisted run around the track to say, okay, this is what perfection looks like. Maybe if I can try and emulate that or get close to a sort of lap time that, say, you could run a software to get a lap to go as close as possible, maybe that could be the next stage to really help drivers learn and develop. Okay, what's a perfect lap look like?
Yeah, I mean, generally, it's also just very important to notice the differences between just a single lap. Because, for a single lap, it's like in qualifying, you can get that lap done, you're in pole position, great. But for the entire race, if you can't do that lap time or, a lap time close to that for the race, which in this case, we also have the 9 times tire wear, with one lap, you won't get that far. That is just the thing. And, I think you can learn and improve yourself, in so many areas in sim racing and also in real racing. Just generally, some people do fuel saving best, some people do tire saving best, and it's for everyone else, for everyone for themselves. It's the perfect chance to just find out how they want to best approach it, or if they just want to go full all out maximum power the entire time, and just do a 2-stop with 2 soft compounds, and 3 soft compounds in this case, and just get the maximum pace out of the car as possible.
Getting word in here in my ear, ladies and gentlemen, is that we'll very shortly be looking to go over towards action out on track. We're almost in a position where we are ready to get ourselves going. We do apologise for the delays that we have had over towards the starting of this racing event. Of course, technology issues do happen from time to time, and of course, a lot actually was said about that virtual 24 hours of Le Mans that came up, Nicholas, and how, yes, there were a couple of issues here and there, but sometimes there is an issue, and that's what happens with life. Sometimes things do go wrong, and not everything can sometimes be as slick and smooth as possible, and that was proven even on one of the highest stages, one of the most important stages that we've seen in the world.
Most definitely. And I would say, especially with something that is completely reliant on internet and, just everything running perfectly. In real life, you always have a little bit of backup for racing, to go on and everything. But in sim racing, you really don't have that backup. You have to have everything running perfectly. And overall, I think it's really a testament that that event really went well. It really was received well as well. So just generally, of course, there's criticism with, technical difficulties, but, we had 24 hours of Le Mans races before, like on other simulations as well, and I would never say that any of them went perfectly from the software side or hardware side. There's always issues that can come up, so even in the best cases, it's not 100% guaranteed that everything will go perfectly.
And that, of course, is always a good mantra to have within life as well. Not everything will go perfectly. It will go as good as you can get it. But I think there's a lot that can happen over the course of these races, and something that we haven't really talked about is the penalty system within Gran Turismo Sport. Of course, when there is car-to-car contact or maybe cutting of the course, you do get allotted a time penalty. That ranges from anywhere from about half a second up to over 1 second, 2 seconds, even goes higher and higher. But the key is how that penalty is served, and it's not served in the sense of, oh, you slow down out on track and then the penalty just magically goes away. It's more rather served in a way, Nicholas, where clean driving and building up chains of consecutive corners again and again knocks a tenth down time after time after time. And that's why you see things like 1.5 second penalties get knocked down over what is going to be what we could say down to 0.6, down to 1/10, even wipe out the penalty retrospectively.
And just speaking of the happenings of the race and, how the penalty system works, right now, Windy is currently leading in his trusty Volkswagen Beetle followed by a hauler in the second Beetle, and Ivan in the Audi R8. So hopefully soon we will have a bit of a picture to follow, because play by play, on they used to do it on the radio, but of course with video is always better. But technical difficulties can, as I said, always happen, and we will soon be able to see it.
Well, this is the thing as well. Of course, we see radio play-by-play a little bit different to, say, television coverage play-by-play. But even with radio play-by-play, they're not blind as well as you, the audience. And trust me when I say this, we have exactly the same picture as you have, ladies and gentlemen, as we get ourselves a little look. Of course, the issues that we are seeing here today are not necessarily coming along from our end of things today. It's a little bit different what we're seeing, all the troubles at this point in time. So we are going to try and get you to action and get a look at the racing action as quickly as we possibly can get it to you at this point in time. But there's so much great sim racing that does go on. So many amazing places which make things work. And actually what I do like is Gran Turismo's blending of real and virtual. Some of the virtual tracks, of course, you look back to virtual tracks in the past, they were used to almost half circumvent other circuits and have an ideal look of a track compared to a different track. For example, Apricot Hill, as a former track of Gran Turismo, was to be like your Topolis Speedway. But now you start to see their own tracks come in. Things like Dragon Tail Speedway, which looks absolutely fantastic to race at. Of course, you got the likes, of course, coming back, Trial Mountain making its return in GT7. So what you're really starting to find here is that those virtual tracks, they still have their place when it comes to racing like this. It's not all just about recreating a track. Sometimes, the imagination creates something absolutely wonderful.
It's quite funny that you just mentioned Dragon Trail, because I was literally just about to mention that circuit. That is really one of the circuits where I actually wish that it was in real life, because it simply looks like such a blast to drive. You have such fast corners, such flowing. You just have such a nice mixture of fast, slow, flowing, and just very abrupt direction changes as well. And whenever you look at, for example, the World Finals in GT Sport, you have such great racing there. It's really interesting to see every single time. And just kudos to Sony and Gran Turismo for making such tracks such as Dragon Trail, for example, possible here.
And of course, that comes along with the FIA Nations Cup and the Manufacturers Cup as well, both of which have been massive for the development of simulated racing out on the platforms as they have world toured over 2018, 2019. Not so much here with everything that's been going on in 2020. But ultimately, what we do see from a lot of racing action is that real close quarters combat that we see. And drivers here today, they've got to be squeaky clean, because the moment they start making contact with other drivers out on circuit, as we had a little update just a handful of minutes ago on who's positioned where, but that small bit of contact, those penalties, they can rack up. Those pit stops become very, very vital. And, we saw it even in the last race where I believe it was Richard who came over the line, actually in fourth place, stole it on the line from Matt. Robert stole it on the line from Matt. But ultimately, because he still had about half a second's worth of penalty, he still dropped back into fifth place.
Yeah, and that is really the thing that is counting a lot here. You can be as fast as you want, but those penalties, they really can change the outcome of the race so drastically. And even if it's, one position doesn't sound much, but for the driver themselves, one position more or less, or just generally just barely making that, really just thinking, yes, I just stole it on the line. What an amazing finish. And then you remember this penalty. It's quite a frustrating experience. So, it's really just important to stay clean, stay consistent, and that is really the big difficulty in these races.
And of course, that difficulty, is all about consistency. And sometimes that's one of the values that really does get overlooked when it comes to driving, something that's really taken for granted. In terms of how you drive consistently, Nicholas, it's a skill that even I don't quite know how to get correct and how to nail a marker every single time you go around a circuit. But all these drivers, they'll be searching for reference points out on circuit. They'll be looking for, say, a slight shadow on the circuit, or maybe they're looking for a marker board on the left or the right hand side to go to a corner and say, that's the point where I brake, I turn in, I put the power down, and I get going. How difficult is it to really coordinate trying to race quickly out on the track when you've got so many factors to keep in mind? Your eyes, pretty much, you've got to look in a million different directions at once when you start racing.
It is really difficult to, transition from the single lap just consistency by yourself, because it's always different when you have other cars also around you. Because when you're side by side with someone, you also at some point get side draft. You also have just normal slipstream, which you have, and of course when you just have your normal line down, your normal braking point at the end of the Camel Straight for Lecum, it's the best example that anyone can think of, or for example into the chicane. When you're by yourself, you, I don't know, get around 260, 270 kilometers an hour. And when you're then side by side with someone after sitting in the slipstream of another person for the entire straight, the entire way down from La Source, up through Rouge Radiant, up the Camel Straight, you get side by side, and suddenly you realize, I'm getting to this braking point. Not only am I a little bit further inside, so my entry will be a bit different to that corner, but also I'm 5 to 10 to 15 kph faster. So you have to adjust your braking points dynamically. So you really have to get to know your car. It's not just, learning by the book, learning every single braking point and knowing exactly what the car will do there. It's really being able to adapt to the situation. And that is really one of the things that is the most difficult, especially when you're racing with a lot of other people. And even more difficult, as we had this topic earlier as well, when you're doing multi-class racing here.
And of course, when you talk about these style of vehicles, they are so synonymous when it comes to multi-class. It's called Group 3 here in Gran Turismo, but they run to the specs, say, a GT3 and a GT category style of vehicle. So when you see how these style of vehicles have been around for quite a long time, they've been involved in many 24-hour events, many various endurance series, up and down the world of racing. You could say that endurance racing very much becomes a case of what is natural to these styles of vehicles. But of course, what you can also say is that today is a sprint race format, which is something maybe a little bit alien to the category.
Well, that is the beautiful thing about GT cars, because you can really use them for endurance, but you can also use them for sprint racing. And I think that is, even though you have that complete element of, I will fight with you now, but in 6 hours I will be ahead of you because my strategy is better. That aspect falls away, so you really have that bit of, you just have to get the outright pace there perfectly.
Well, ultimately here, ladies and gentlemen, what we are just getting a little bit of news coming into my ears that we've still got these issues that are going on, which has caused everything that has happened to effectively grind to a halt, and that includes in the race as well. So due to what has happened on our end, we don't quite have all the news on it. We believe that this race will be hosted at a different point in time, at a different day. It's an error which, of course, that we have no control over, and we do sincerely apologize for that all happening. Nothing that we could do about this one. So for those of you who have joined us here today, thank you very, very much for tuning in. We do apologize that we weren't able to bring you some racing action here today, but hopefully in 1 week's time we will have that opportunity to make that happen. But from everyone who has been working tirelessly behind the scenes, from the likes of George Muscat, Adrian Fagayo, Nathan and Justin Mifsud, who have been toiling away with all the troubles that have been going on, from Nicholas Hillebrand on my left hand side and myself, Jake Sperry, this has been a broadcast brought to you on TBM Sport and Motorsports TV, brought to you by World Pro Racing. And ultimately, we hope to see you in 1 week's time for some more fantastic action. Racing today is postponed, but it will happen at a different point in time. We hope to see you for that, and of course we hope to see you, hopefully, for the remaining 4 races that we have available for us.